Welcome into the GigEm247 Sports Podcast. I am Andrew Hattersley, joined by Brian Perroni. I think we've reached one of fans' favorite weeks of the year, favorite weekends coming up. The Texas A&M pool party will take place on Saturday. This has kind of turned into legendary status over the last couple of years. The momentum that A&M's been able to kind of get coming out of the weekends. How you doing? And what are kind of your thoughts on leading into this weekend?
Oh yeah, I mean this has been a big one. I was about to say I'm looking up now. I was like, who's the number two player in the country? Because
Right.
they're the ones we always joke about, and they end up showing up like Walter Nolan. And why am I blanking on the QB's name?
The last year we joked about, and then Malachi Nelson
Yeah, Malachi
did
Nelson.
end up
So
did end up showing up.
we'll
So
see if it looks like Ohio State receiver commit Jeremiah Smith from South Florida. We'll see if he shows up. I don't think he's supposed to, but
yeah, I don't think he's expected to, but he's been to A&M in the past. So you know, if he shows up, that'll be 3 years in a row that you've kind of nailed the number two
yeah, the
player.
top. Yeah, no, but I
uh,
mean, this is going to be a good one. I mean, we have, you and I have a visitor list out if people want to go
yep,
to gigem247.com. We got a visitor list out, but there are 8, potentially 9 5-stars on there, which is
it's absolutely
ridiculous. I
loaded.
mean, every school in the country is having a recruiting event this week or weekend because, there's in a whole 2-month period, it's only 1 week that's not a dead period. So every school in the country is having something. The fact that A&M is getting that many on campus, like when every school in the country is trying to get them on campus, I mean that's a testament to how well they're recruiting right now.
No doubt. And you mentioned it. This is you only got a week right before um, left in the summer to be able to get visitors on campus, and so everybody's kind of jockeying for these couple weekends. Now Texas is doing some stuff earlier in the week. LSU's doing their event on Friday, and I think that does actually work out well for A&M. That guys might be able to go do that LSU event and
Yeah,
then make the stop over to Texas A&M the next day, and that could be the case for Colin Simmons and Caden Durham. Those are two guys we're kind of tracking that have talked about their interest about being able to make it over to the Texas A&M pool party. It would be big to get both of those Duncanville standouts. Obviously, Colin Simmons is one of the top edge rushers in the country. Running back wise, Caden Durham's a pretty significant target at this point. A&M missed out on Longview running back Taylor Tatum, who committed to Oklahoma. Just kind of looking at Durham and looking at Nate Frazier is another guy that's kind of mulling if he is going to go anywhere this weekend. Talked about Mater Dei is got practices underway. Aiden Breland, his teammate, is one of those guys that is expected to be in town this weekend. There's a little bit of concern on the board about the running back
yeah.
position and that room. Where does your concern kind of lie in terms of targets on that front?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a legitimate concern. It's less concerning because of the talent they have on campus. I mean, you got Ruben
Yeah.
Owens, who's going to be a true freshman, and really, the state of Texas produces so many good running backs. There are some others, in the state that they could try to get back in on. Kedron Young from Lufkin, maybe Nate, who's committed to Notre Dame. Nate Palmer, who started his career at College Station, is committed to TCU. Guys like that who are 4-stars. They may try to jump in on, but right now it does look like Nate Frazier is probably headed to UGA, and it wouldn't be a shock to see Caden Durham join Taylor Tatum at Oklahoma. You're seeing that a lot now with running backs, not
Yeah.
just not having a problem in another class with the top running back, but sort of seeking that out so they can share carries, because we're seeing in the NFL with Saquon Barkley right now and Josh Jacobs. Running backs don't get paid as much as others, and their shelf life is a lot shorter in the NFL. So
Yep.
if they can save some wear and tear on their bodies, they're okay doing it. Players, they don't need to run for 2,000 yards a year in college. They don't really have that goal. The goal is the NFL. So they have no problem platooning. So it's not a big deal for Caden Durham that Taylor Tatum committed to Oklahoma. I know people are going to ask that. So A&M might have to go back to the drawing board a bit at the running back position. But, the good news, like I said, is that there are quite a few good players out there.
They are, and for me, one of the things is when you look at the history of A&M, right, and you look at what Jimbo Fisher's been able to do since he arrived in College Station, they've signed a top 100 running back just about every single year. And the last time they didn't was CJ Spiller or Isaiah Spiller, sorry. And he ended up being pretty darn good. And so you look at that, and that history of being able to sign running backs, they've been able to find some good ones. And there's been times even last cycle was well, where's A&M going to go at running back after Ruben Owens committed to Louisville, and they're able to flip him late. So there's still a lot of time to go on that front. Right now, I would say that I think there is reason to be at least concerned or worried about where they're going to go, but I think they've still got plenty of time to figure it out. And that's one of the few positions that really they have question marks at, that and cornerback. And it's going to be a big weekend at cornerback too. Terry Bussey is obviously the top target at that position, but Kobe Black is another one out of Waco Connolly. We reported on Tuesday is expected to make it in this weekend. What do you think? What do you think are kind of the stakes for this weekend when it comes to Kobe Black, and what are your overall thoughts on the cornerback room?
Yeah, Kobe Black plays things closer to the vest than just about any recruit that I've covered in last couple of years. I know that Texas was feeling not comfortable or great, but sort of optimistic about where they stood, and probably is in good shape. But getting him on campus is huge, especially an event like this that has caused a lot of momentum shift. I mean, just going back 2 years ago, I mean, Bryce Anderson was a whole, A&M Texas battle until he went to both pool parties in the week. And, that was really what cemented him, as an Aggie. So I think you'll see that with more guys. I mean, I think Terry Bussey, I've got a crystal ball pick in for A&M. I think it's only a matter of time before he ends up in Aggie. Could it be this weekend? Possibly. I think that would be huge. And having him on board, I think, would help with momentum with another guy, with a guy like Kobe Black. I mean, I don't think Black is ready to shut it down, but you at least get him on campus and get him, possibly momentum, get him thinking about that, because, Bussey, and then you'll have Miles Davis and Jordan Pride will be in town, other, DB commits. So, they'll be all over recruiting them too.
For me, the coming out of this Kobe Black weekend, what would be a success? And obviously, I think A&M kind of isn't a school that maybe gets mentioned as much as it probably should when it comes to Kobe Black. But if you think about it, he was in town for a junior day in January. He came back in June for a quick unofficial visit. Yeah. Now he's coming back in at the end of July for another unofficial visit, and he was at a camp last summer. That's 4 unofficial visits that he's made to A&M. Yeah. I think A&M certainly should maybe be talked about a little bit more than they should. But I think a successful weekend for A&M would be he does make it to campus, makes it through the weekend, and then starts looking towards maybe scheduling an official visit.
Yeah, for sure.
In the fall. Maybe that Alabama game would be obviously a good opportunity, and one that I know a lot of guys are kind of looking at. And so when it comes to Kobe Black, I think, and obviously Texas is a school that has had a lot of the buzz for him lately. Can't rule out Alabama, can't rule out Ohio State. And I think LSU's also in the mix there. Oklahoma is one that he took an official visit to in June. So I think there's still some runway left to go in that recruitment as well. So going to look at also, after a quick break, we're going to look at the 2025 names and talk a little more about that momentum factor to coming out of this weekend and what A&M might be able to gain. So stick with us, and we'll be right back after a quick break. Welcome back into the GigEm247 Sports Podcast. I am Andrew Hattersley, joined by Brian Perroni. Brian, we talked about the 2024 list before the break. 2025 is almost just as impressive in terms of some of the guys that are expected to be on campus. Dorian Brew is one. He's out of Ohio, but a guy that has ties to the state of Texas, used to live in Texas, and is a 5-star on the composite at cornerback. Dejan Petaway is in Sanford, who's currently on campus. Katie Pato, cornerback, and also
Devin Sanchez.
Devin Sanchez, and
that's if people are paying attention, that is 4 5-star cornerbacks. A position that we were talking
Yep.
about is a bit of a concern because there aren't any in the deal. But that's 4 5-star cornerbacks, and then you have, like you said, Dejon Petaway, who is a top 100 cornerback in that class, maybe even top 50 if depending on what rankings.
Yeah.
And then I think then Joe. Actually, you know what? We're using the composite Jabori Inch another 5-star
Yep.
from New Iberia Westgate. So that is, 5-star cornerbacks and then another top 50 guy. So I mean, that's pretty good. Devin Sanchez really likes A&M. He also likes Alabama and Ohio State, and he's looking at some others, but he listed those
Yeah.
three as his top one. So he was supposed to be in Columbus this weekend. So getting him to College Station instead, is already a win. He'll probably visit Ohio State during the season, but it never hurts to get him back because surprisingly, that camp this summer that we were at, I think the final day of camp was his
Yeah.
first time ever in College Station. So getting him back and familiar, just because it's a quick drive from Houston is a big deal.
Yeah, and I think this is a chance for the A&M staff to really set themselves up nicely for 2025 in that class. It's still early, but that's a really, really strong group, especially in state of cornerbacks, and A&M's getting quite a few of them on campus this weekend. And then you've got a guy like Kelvion Riggins, South Oak Cliff linebacker, who was on campus in June, is expected to be back this weekend as well. Feels like every time there's a big weekend, Kelvion Riggins is always there.
Oh, yeah.
And he definitely loves it down at A&M, has grown close with this coaching staff, and is a guy they've continued to make a priority, and is really, really close with Ohio State's another school, definitely in the mix there. But he just continues to show, a ton of interest in Texas A&M.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, he's a guy that, that really, really does like A&M. He's been there a ton. He's got a teammate, an old teammate at A&M, Javon Thomas, who's, been talking well. So, yeah, I think that's a big, that's a big one in that class. You look at a couple others. I mean, Landon Rink, his dad played at Texas. It may be hard to beat Texas out because obviously he's grown up, rooting for the Longhorns, but he's a guy A&M really likes, and this is yet another trip for him. He's taken, a number of them to A&M, and he's just down the road at Cy-Fair. I mean, Keati Armstrong, he could play tight end or defensive end. I mean, he worked out at tight end at camp, but his defensive end film is also really good. And he's a teammate of Ty Anthony Smith. So, that's another real big one. And, maybe if you could get him on the board early, that would be real big for momentum. He's not going to be like the vocal lead of the class because he's, a quieter kid, but, it'll show that A&M's serious about that 25 class as well.
Super athletic. We saw him going through tight end drills and just, what he was able to do. And
right. He looks like an NFL guy, like off the
He
bus.
does.
Yeah.
As soon as he walks in, you kind of have that look of, okay, well, who's that guy? We, and we need to get to know him. And obviously, Keati Armstrong, kind of checks all the boxes. And then, switching back to 2024, another important visitor you got a chance to catch up with, and there's a story over on the site I encourage people to check out, is Jelani Watkins. He's a guy that maintains a bit more quiet of a recruitment, would say. I think he's only taken one official to LSU that came in June, but Texas A&M's definitely still in the mix there. And one of the questions I think is with Ernest Campbell in the class now, Refugio speedster, where does Jelani Watkins kind of fit into that mix? And you got a chance to talk to him. What did he have to say about Texas A&M?
Yeah, so I mean, he, it obviously could change if schools come in and press really hard, but right now it's pretty much down to A&M and LSU.
Yeah,
there was some thought that he would have been committed to LSU already. He didn't do so on his official last month. I think if A&M does push, they could end up with him. And I would say, they already have their slot guy, Ernest Campbell, but what they've shown is that they want speed. They want speed on the roster, and Campbell and Jelani Watkins are two of the fastest guys, not only in the state but in the country. So I could see them, possibly getting him. He's a little thicker than Campbell. He can, they talk to him about getting the ball in sweeps, jet sweeps and things like that. I think he can do that well, and he's a dynamic weapon. And there's not that 25-man signing limit anymore, and the senior and junior classes are going to lose some guys. So, do you end up, take him and take, a lot of receivers, including 2 slots? It's possible. He could be a guy to watch if they do end up pushing.
Yeah, with the numbers limit, I think you're less kind of restricted. If there's a guy that you really like and you feel like he's able to contribute, I think you go ahead and take him. I'm with you. From what I've kind of gathered, his name seems to be surfacing a little more and more over the course of the month. And when you start talking to people, A&M starts to be mentioned a little more. The fact that he's going to make it on campus is a significant deal. And then, the good news, obviously, for A&M fans is Cameron Coleman confirmed with us that he plans to be back in town as well. That'll be the first time since his big July 4th commitment to Texas A&M. And getting him back on campus, getting him around the staff is a big deal. He obviously loves it at A&M and has made that very, very clear. So, really, really good to get him back on campus. The final one, I know this is kind of the one that everybody's going to kind of ask and kind of get him up. And we, I know everybody kind of looks at commitments and results and that coming out of this weekend. And it's going to be an interesting storyline to follow because I think there are a couple guys that are kind of close. But what do you think? Do you think A&M has a chance to really, have some momentum coming out of this weekend as they start going towards the fall, or where do you kind of stand on that?
We've seen who was it, Miles Davis. A&M.
Yeah.
He was going to wait to commit, and to commit publicly until August. A&M wanted him to do it, so I could see them trying to talk somebody into maybe doing it early. So Terry Bussey, I would not. Even if he doesn't commit this weekend, I still say A&M is the leader by quite a bit coming out of it, but I could see them trying to do that, and then maybe trying to get a guy like Keati Armstrong or somebody else in that class. So if there's not a commitment, I wouldn't say it's a bust or anything like that because you've got 9 or 10 5-stars on campus, but I do think there's a good chance they end up with 1 or 2, specifically from the weekend.
For me, if they can get Blake Ivy on campus as well, that's another guy that we're following closely on whether he makes it into town. And I've said this with Terry Bussey quite a bit, that any school in the country would love to get him committed in the summer because it'll mean a lot in terms of commitment or in terms of momentum and what he's able to do and the number of guys he's kind of connected to in the class.
Yeah.
That's a guy that would get everybody's attention. And so I do think A&M has a chance to kind of set themselves up well for the fall, but I also think, they're in a kind of a better spot this year than they were at this time last year. They've got 18 commitments in the class. And so, there's not a ton of guys right there. There's going to be guys that are going to opt to wait until later in the fall, no doubt. And so I think if this weekend's going to be a success, if they can get guys like Caden Durham back on campus, get Colin Simmons back on campus, that's really important. Blake Ivy, obviously, as well.
Yeah.
Micah Hudson's a name that we're certainly tracking, and I think. But
if he shows up this weekend, that's big, and that'll show A&M has a lot of momentum and serious about him because everybody thinks he's gonna end up at Tech. He's supposed to go to Tech this weekend. They're expecting him, but he's one of those guys. He could, there's that chance that he shows up at A&M. If he does, watch out for him as a legitimate target.
Yeah, so those are kind of some of the big storylines that we're following, and as I've always said with Micah Hudson, you can't really speak in definitives because he's going to make up his mind late. He's going to keep people guessing a little bit, and so always got to kind of caveat that one. And so it's going to be interesting to see what he kind of does. But what you should do is be locked in on the GigEm247 site. We're going to have you covered with visit reactions, visit recaps, previews to come over the next couple of days, and continue to add to that visitor list. There's a lot of names we're still checking with that are finalizing their plans, and so you definitely want to be locked in over at GigEm247 for all the latest. And if you like these videos, be sure to hit a like and share button and subscribe to the channel. Same on Spotify and iTunes if you're listening on there. And thanks again for joining us. Enjoy this weekend. It'll be a lot of fun. It's recruiting season, and then next week things football season. It goes right from recruiting season
kickoff.
Yep, we turn right to fall camp, which is gets underway next week, and media days coming around the corner on that front. The A&M media day from that standpoint, and so a lot of fun stuff and a great time to be on the site. So enjoy the rest of your week, and we'll see you guys soon.